We have completed all the users routes, right? The basic one that we want to have, right? So if you go to the front end as well, we should be able to have, wow, it's not running. Let me run the app. Yes, let's run this. Wow, we're having an issue. Okay, so the first issue to set in this case is that we need to make sure that we clear some stuff, right? Wherever we have app dot models and all that, right? You need to go and do db dot model. You need to do app dot db models. Pydantic, even the Pydantic issue app dot pd models and all that, right? And then which one again? Let's go to the Pydantic models. Wherever we are importing something from the files that we have, we let me clean all these things. Okay, so we have stuff of these sorts. Okay, now there's another update I want to give you, that when you come to the transaction table here, I've done some changes. I will show it in a bit, but right now let me just show you what happens what we have at the front end here. So I'm refreshing. So far this is what we have. Let me clean this, right? So far this is what we have. We have the users route, all these things, we completed them, and then we are going to the transaction, and the transaction route is only one thing, the wow. So I don't think this should have anything, so let's try it out and see. Let's execute this. Yeah, transaction created successfully, but it's just a message, simple message that we are returning. So if you go to the transactions.py, you should be able to see that it's just a simple message that we are returning. But we need to create a transaction this simple. So to do that, we need to actually define how transaction data will come in, right? So that will lead us to go to the Pydantic model. So I'm going to my Pydantic models, and in the class, right, I've pre-prepared a class like that. Let me uncomment it. Yeah, I've pre-prepared a class of this sort, right, so that we can use it. So I'm taking title, I'm taking the description, I'm taking type, I'm taking the cost, which is a float like decimal point, I'm taking the owner ID, and I'm taking the medium, whether it's going to be a Momo, a bank, or cash. So that's the medium of the money, the transaction that I made, right? The type is like, is it income or expenses, something that's coming to me or something that I'm spending. Okay, so let me go to the database model, that's the DB models. And the transactions, you can see that we have various columns, and then for the title column, you see the nullable is false, meaning that we are saying that, okay, can this thing be nullable, and we are saying false, meaning that it cannot be nullable. If it cannot be nullable, then it means that we need to uh, um, give it a value or assign it a value when we are creating it. That's why when we go to the Pydantic models, you can see that the title is assigned, is given. Then you go to that's DB models, right? Then this one nullable is true, the description is true, right? It's not compulsory. Someone can just upload something, right? But they may not want to give a description, so it's fine. That's why it's like that. Then column. What's the column? The type column is false, right? You need to specify the type. So for that one too, we can see that the type is here. Those types. So description, I've talked about it already. Even though it's nullable, but then the user is we leave it to the user to do. So the type is also given here, and then also the cost is also necessary, the medium is also necessary. They all appear in the Pydantic model. The date created, the date that the user has created this transaction, and then there is date of transaction. The date of transaction is different from the date created. The date created is the time that the user is actually reporting in the app, that the time that the user is reporting to the app that they have made this transaction. But date of transaction is the actual date. The user may have done the transaction yesterday, but it's now reporting it. So the actual date of transaction is given here. Right now, I've made it true because we haven't prepared the front end app that we'll be preparing in future. We haven't prepared it so that it will return that date for us. But right now, we are just doing date of transaction here. I'm currently making it true. This is what I've changed. So in the first video that we completed this model, we made it false, so I'm now made it true. So I'm hoping that you use Alembic to also make the actual update. That's the challenge I'm throwing to you, right? To make the updates, right? We've used Alembic how to make change. When you make change to the transaction to a model, we use Alembic to update it. If you don't want to, right now we don't have anything in the database like that. Let me go to transactions. The transaction model table is empty. The transaction table is empty. So what you can do is that you can delete the entire table, the transaction table. That's where you go, you right click here and click on delete, right? But me, I don't want to delete my own because I have everything sorted. So use Alembic to do whatever, or delete the entire table. The one you I will recommend it is recommended that you start using Alembic very well. So use Alembic to do that. And the owner ID. The owner ID is a column, right? And that ID we need it. So it is also in the Pydantic model here, owner ID and the medium. So how our data will come in is prepared. So we go to the transactions route. This is a transaction route, right? Great. So for that route, for this particular route, we need to for this endpoint to create transaction, you need to have some parameters passed. Transaction, the type is going to be transaction in, right? But transaction in is not yet imported over here. It's going to be depend, right? DB is going to be depend on the database. DB is going to be a session which is equal to depends, right? Get underscore DB. The get underscore DB, all these things are not here yet. So we need to import the transaction in. Transaction in is in the Pydantic model, right? So I need to import that. So I will go here and say from app dot pd models import transaction in. Yeah, so now it's sorted. Now a session. So from SQLAlchemy, right? Import session. So it's SQLAlchemy.orm. .orm that we import session. Then the DB is from where? It's from, we have created that function here inside the user, right? So it's in the user's route, and the user is found under. So you go to route, you go to app, and the app you go to route, and the route you go to the user file. So I'll do the same thing here. I will say from app.route.user import get db. Yeah, so that was also imported, right? Okay, so if a user in the transaction this thing, right, that will be coming, let's say transaction model, there will be a column called owner ID from what the user will be giving us. If the owner ID comes, what we need to do is that we need to specify, we need to verify. So verify if the user exists before proceeding, right? So what we need is that we need to db user, we need to fetch the user, and then before proceeding. So what we'll do is that we'll say db.query. It's as if we are doing querying things. So like this one, I can really go and copy from the user side. So if you go to the user side, there are things like that that you've done, especially getting user by ID, right? So we've done this, right? Let me copy this and go and paste it here. You see, this is what we are doing, but we haven't imported user. They say the user model. So the user model as a model in all is not here. So you say from app.db models import user. So we import the user model here, right? So now if user is none, no, we can copy that one too from user side here, right? Yeah, so you can copy this, put it under this place and paste it. Yeah, so we have it here. So HTTP exception is not imported, so we need to go that side and go to depends, right? From FastAPI, we have to import what's the thing, HTTP exception. We need to also import status as well. Yeah, so those things are imported. So if the user is not existed, there will be an exception that will be created. But if it is not, then what's the next thing now? We need to the message, if the user exists, then we need to create transaction, right? Transaction model. So let me call it's a variable called new transaction is equal to, you're going to follow the transaction model that we are using in the database. This is a database model. So transaction model, I'm going to import it from the database model, right? Transaction. So let's import that. So what are we going to need? So under transaction, what are the various fields that we need to specify? So we have title, right? Title is equal to transaction dot title. That's what will come from. Let me do it for like this. Yeah. So we take transaction, right? Transaction, that's title. What am I doing? This is what I'm doing. So I know that this one is false, right? And we are taking that from the Pydantic model. See, Pydantic models, right? Title. So I need to go and say the description too. So let's go and say description is equal to transaction dot description. This transaction dot description, remember, is a dictionary. It's coming from this. This is transaction, and the transaction have various things. All these things it is having this stuff that we set in the transaction in, right? Description, type, cost, owner ID, medium. Okay, so that's what we are. So I'm going to type as well. Type is equal to transaction dot type. What's the next thing? Cost equals to transaction dot cost. Then medium, yeah, I think medium equals to transaction dot medium. Okay, what's the next thing again? I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things here. Go to the Pydantic model again. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Owner ID. Yes, the owner ID. Owner underscore ID is equal to transaction dot owner ID. Yeah, so I have everything set now. So I'm able to use the data that is coming, right? I've been able to use it to create a transaction for database. The name transaction is from the database, but we are using a Pydantic one that we receive from the front end to create this, right? The title. You see the one that we were writing first before writing equal to transaction does this, they're all coming from here because the names are the same. That's why it's easier to just quickly pass it to them because this name is the same as the one we write in the Pydantic. So it is making it easy for us to populate it very well inside here. So yeah, we are not having an issue. Not all of them. See, not everything here has been specified here, right? Because some of them are null. This one is having a default value to be set automatically. This one we set it to nullable to true. That's why it's not needed. This one is not even a column. That's why it was not. This one is not even a column. That's why it was not specified. But this one is specified. This is specified. This is specified. I think all these ones have been specified, but the column ID will be provided when the item is created in the database. The ID will be created whenever a new transaction enter. We'll get it automatically. So those things are not specified. So things that were specified were these guys and owner ID. The rest, some are now, some is default value, and some is not even a column, like the owner, the relationship. Okay, so this is ready, right? So if this is ready, right, so what we are going to do here, we are going to return transaction. So basically, let's return the transaction. Let's the new transaction. No, new transaction. It's not going to work. Why? Because we need to actually add add it to the database, right? We need to add this to the database, and then we need to do what again? We need to now commit or do a save. When we do a save, now what do? We refresh so that our new transaction now will now have the various values, then we now return it. Okay, so this is ready. This is ready. So first we get the things from the front end. We check if the user exists. If the user exists, then if the user doesn't exist, then we raise an exception. But if it exists, we proceed and use that owner ID to populate, to create a new transaction, and then we will have it stored in the database. Currently in the database, what do we have? We have this. Let me refresh it to be sure. Received. I think this is not supposed to be here. Deleted. Let me refresh this again. Okay, so cost, medium, owner ID, date of transaction, blah blah blah. Okay, so we let's go and create our database models, right? Let me go. Oh, oh, let me right click. Let me right click and open all rows, view all rows. Okay, so let me also open the transaction down, all rows. Yeah, so nothing is inside. Okay, so what we'll do is now, let's go to the front end and then refresh. Yeah, so we have a post of transaction, right? Let me try this out. So we have title, that ID and things. So there are some things given there, but let's just run it and see what will happen. Internal server error. What is it saying? What is it telling us? Yeah, so the issue that we have is that we need to look at the ID level. You see, right? This one we copied it from somewhere, remember? So we are not comparing it to any ID here. We need to do transaction dot owner ID. Yes, the ID that we are looking for is in the transaction field, right? We are that ID is the one that is provided here. That's what we need to check. So we are going back to the front end. I'm going to do the same default thing and see if it will work. So I will say there is no existing user with the provided ID. So this thing doesn't work. The ID is not correct. So what I will do is that I have to go and fetch a correct ID. So the correct ID for user, let's use Courage, right? Or let me use Agnes. Let me copy this. I'm copying the ID and I'm going to put it here. Control V. Okay, so I provided the correct IV now. Let me say there's a cost. We bought something 100 Ghana cedis, and then the type is an expense, right? It's an expense that we've made. And then what's the description? Bought food in the afternoon outside. That is just basically something that comes to my mind. So title is a afternoon meal, afternoon meal, something like that. Okay, so I have something. What's the medium? Did we use mobile money to do it, or did we use cash? So I'm just doing cash here. The medium is a cash. So yeah, this, let me execute this. Yeah, so it is created. It has returned something for us, right? So it is, there is date of transaction is now because we didn't specify, we made it now, afternoon mail. So let's check the database. Let me go to transaction, refresh. Yeah, so it is fully here. So afternoon mail, bought food in the afternoon outside. The type is an expense. The cost is 100. The medium is a cash. Date created is today, and then the owner ID is also here. So you can create as many that you want. Let me change this thing back to an error one. Let me execute. It will tell you that there is no existing user with the provided ID. Yeah, so that's how we create our own user, right? Our own first transactions in the name of a particular user. You can create as many transactions as you want, but basically, yes, this is how to create transaction. So yeah, see you in the next session.